Hello guys. This week I've got a video regarding some of the advanced rules that you might just happen to come across with playing Wrath of Course. So I'm just going to try and go through as many as I can, as quickly as I can. I think there's about 1, 2, 3... There's about 7 I need to go through with you. And like I said, I'll just try and go through as quickly as I can, so I'll get straight into the video. So these are the rules which basically you don't really see much of, especially on my YouTube channel or maybe even my the webpage for Wrath of Course. So I'm going to start off with some which you might already know, and then I'll go on to some which like the much more advanced ones which you really won't see much of in play later on. So the first one is probably the one you're gonna know, is the core HP. So I've got 2 cores here. Core of Light, Core of Death, and you can see they've both got HP, different HP values. Players' health cannot go above the HP printed on the cards. So the Core of Light, if you've got 7,500 health and you use something like an Elixir of Restoration to recover 1,000 health, it will cap at 8,000. And the same goes for the Core of Death. The maximum that will be is 6,500. There is also a red and a blue core in booster packs. I believe somebody had pulled the red one. I'll link the video somewhere at the end, hopefully. And that one has got about, I think it's got 7,000 health. And no one's found the blue one yet. And there's also a green one coming in part 2 of GVE. So yeah, that's the core health. It can't go above what's printed on the card. So next is, it's also regarding cores actually, the destruction of cores themselves. Oh shit! So it's a little bit too hard. I've got a new camera mount for the phone, so it's a bit, yeah. So the destruction of cores. You can only destroy a core by using unit damage, and I came across this after playing a few games. So you might come across the God Summon, or the much more common, well, it's a rare, but it'll appear more often than the God Summon, Eruptive Fissure. And it says destroy any stack of cards in play. Now, as you're aware, stack is all the cards what stack up on top of a terrain card. And of course, a core is also used as a terrain card. Pardon me. So obviously, if your opponent went to use an Eruptive Fissure on the stack with the core would not be destroyed. It would just stay there. Whereas if this was targeting a stack of cards which has got a terrain on it, instead it will destroy the terrain. So basically, the cores can only be destroyed by actual unit damage, or if you get like an action card like Holy Light, which says deals 300 damage, that's the only way they can be destroyed, with like number damage in simple terms. Okay, so the next one, so I think we're coming away from the cores now. So we have got, let's have a look, see, terrains. Now you might have seen these special terrains. We've got here Isolated Village and Solitary Graveyard, and these both come in the starter packs. And as you can see, the element that they generate, it will be one of 2 different colours. So I think I'm just going to call these split terrains. There will be a few more coming in the future, but we will see another split terrain in the second pre-constructed deck in GVE, the green and blue one. But I'm keeping that under wraps for the minute. So so let's say it's the beginning of your turn and you've got this card out. There's no element on it, so you get to choose whether it generates a black or a red element. So let's say now you've passed your turn and you have not used the element on this terrain. When your next turn comes around, because it's already got an element on it, it will not generate another element. So whatever you chose the previous turn, it will still be that colour. So let's say you picked black on your previous turn, when it comes back around to your new turn, you can't change that to red unless you've used the element off that terrain. There's also going to be a few more cards in the future as well, where you're going to have more than one little element symbol here, so they'll start stacking up from right to left. So the more they have on here is the more elements that they produce per turn. So let's say, for example, you've got a black one here and a red one here, then that means that this terrain will generate a red and a black. So it would generate two elements on one terrain. But they're not out yet. They're just for future reference. Okay, so the terrains are out of the way. Now we've got, let's have a look, see. Gaining control. So gaining control, it doesn't happen very often in Cores, but it does happen. So I've pulled 3 cards here, and there's also an Alto. Let's have a look. There he is. So Alto, and these 3 cards all gain control, or do something to gain control. So the Crowns Collector lets you control a relic or a weapon. The Gauntlet lets you control a unit. The King Waven, well, that destroys the stat. That should have been in the previous thing. But and Alto, as you can see, his hit number 3 is gain control of any unit in play after battle. So gaining control is pretty simple. It does exactly what it says on the tin. But to actually gain control, you have to make sure that you have got, let's say for example you're gaining control of a unit. You need to make sure that you have got an empty terrain for that unit to occupy. If you've not got a spare terrain, then you will not be able to gain control. The same goes for a weapon and a relic. If you gain control of a weapon or a relic, you need to, let's say a relic for example, you need to make sure that there's a terrain for it to go on your side of the field. If you're trying to gain control of a weapon, you need to make sure that there's a unit for it to go onto. And so if you're trying to gain control of a terrain, you need to make sure that there's an empty terrain spot. You need to make sure that you could physically play them yourself. And if you've not got anywhere for that card to go, for what you're trying to gain control of, then it will not happen and the opponent will keep their card. So that's a quick one regarding gaining control of cards. Next one is, what order do responses go in? So let's say you're trying to play 2 action cards and your opponent has got a response card. Who actually gets priority? Well, for every action card, an opponent can play a response card. So let's say here we've got an action card. Very simple. Destroy any unit with a play cost of 1. And then you want to play, I don't know, let's say, I've not got a spare action. Yeah, I do. And then you want to play this in the same turn. So these are treated as separate. So if your opponent wants to play a response card against this card, the Pathetic Kill, then they can, by all means, they can do. There's no stack as like what you would find in Magic. There's no like, how can I put it? No complicated. This will resolve first. Blah 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 blah. So you've just got these two action cards, and your opponent wants to counter this Pathetic Kill. So all they would simply do is, as you put it on the table or whatever, then they will play the response card, which is the counter activity. And don't forget, a response can also respond to another response or a battle card. So then you could, for the shits and giggles, you could play Crystal Ball, which is both an action and a response. So in this example, you're trying to play Pathetic Kill, but then your opponent plays counter activity to counter it. So your Pathetic Kill doesn't do anything. But then, in response to that counter activity, you can play the Crystal Ball and just look at the top card of any player's deck, and then that's it, it's gone. So it's very simple, the priority of response cards. And then say you wanted to play Eruptive Fissure, the same thing would happen again. Your opponent can play any response cards if they have, or if they would like to do so. Okay, next up is, you might have seen the 3 battle abilities, or the static abilities. You've got Ranged, Burrow, just there, and Ambush. So what order do these actually go in? If you go into a battle, and your opponent is playing a ranged unit, how exactly can you work along with the Ambush ability? Or what about the Burrow ability? Well, in a nutshell, it's all down to timing. So let's say you've got your Castle Archer. Obviously, you've got a ranged unit, so you get a bonus battle damage phase. A preemptive one. But then a burrowed unit can enter play at any time during battle. So let's say, for example, your opponent's attacking with this Castle Archer and you've got no ranged units. This unit is going to deal its damage first. But because this has got the Ambush ability, you can pay the 3 elements to get it out and include it in the ranged phase, because you can play anytime you can play a battle card. So if this was a battle card and it just did whatever, let's say for example minus 200 attack power, you know, you can play a battle card in the ranged phase, and you can play an ambush ability anytime you can play a battle card. So the ambush is a really powerful ability. It's just as powerful as the ranged. And as for the burrow, that is just completely down to timing. So sometimes these units will say miss, but you burrow this unit immediately. So if you burrow it immediately, it's not going to be hit by the opponent's damage, or whatever damage they've got in their damage pool. But sometimes you will notice that some cards, like, let's see if Alto has got one here on screen, number 5, destroy any one stack of cards after battle. So you know, you've got to wait for the damage to be dealt, but after battle you get to do what it says there. So yeah, with them 3 static battle abilities, they're usually shown in gold or, you know, included in text. It's all down to timing, so it just kind of adds to the strategic side of the game. And then finally we've got, I think I've nearly got through everything now. Oh, and abilities, sorry. There's a few abilities in game, but basically, in a nutshell, when it comes to like activated abilities and stuff like that, each unit and stuff can only use their ability once per turn. So if you've got a card like, what's it called now, the Wishing Well, it says discard a card, but for doing such a thing, you get to draw a card. There we go. So it's a relic, discard a card, but you draw a card, but you can only do that once per turn for each Wishing Well you've got out in play. So yeah, abilities are limited to once per turn per card. And then finally, this one more so revolves around flip cards. Pardon me again. So as you can tell, this is obviously the proper face of the card. This is the back of the card. You can see because it's got restricted in the cost. So you would not, and there's also a little text, reminder text there saying, if the stack has no relic called Dragon's Loot, use the other side of this card. So, you know, when you've got your terrain card down, you can put the Dragon's Loot down, and then you can put this down, but because it's on the Dragon's Loot, you will use the other side of this card. Whereas if you put the dragon on a terrain which didn't have the Dragon's Loot on, let's say this one for example, you know, it will always use this side. So in the future there may be card text which don't actually have the instructions on the back of the card, the other side. It will just have restricted at the top there, and that is basically the main thing you need to look for, because sometimes it won't have this text on the back here because of it's crushing all this other text down at the bottom here. So yeah, the front of the card is always the card with the element cost on, and that should always be used until the card tells you to turn the card over. So, you know, in a nutshell, you just don't play that on a terrain that way up which doesn't have Dragon's Loot on. And the same goes for all the other cards with which are going to be flip cards in the future. Alright guys, so that's it felt like it was a very quick video, but it's nearly 15 minutes long. So yeah, thanks again for watching. I hope this proved informative for you guys. You know, I'm sure you've got plenty of questions, and hopefully I answered most of them here. If you've got any questions regarding the game, if you're trying to play it and you're unsure about something, just post a comment below and I will respond to you. Don't forget, I've got my phone will always alert me when someone comments on my videos, so I can always reply to comments almost instantly, unless I'm driving. So yeah, thanks a lot guys. Be sure to post any questions down below and I shall see you in the next video.